Hi, I'm Doug Wood, co-creator of TechSafe Schools, and I'm here today to talk about an emerging health issue for everyone in the school, but especially our kids. It's the radiation that comes from every wireless device in the school and the cumulative and aggregate effects of that radiation. The good news is this is a problem with a solution. And today you'll hear a little not only about the emerging science, but about the solutions that are available for any school. TechSafe Schools is a project of grassroots environmental education, an award-winning, science-based nonprofit organization with a mission to inform the public about the links between common environmental exposures and human health. Grassroots works on issues of clean air, clean water, a safe food supply, and chemicals in consumer products. And since 2014, that list of issues has included radio frequency radiation, or RF radiation, the radiation that comes from all wireless devices. Today's classrooms have become full-blown digital laboratories with our kids as the subjects. Manufacturers and software developers have entered the education market in a big way, not only for the tremendous profits, but also to develop brand loyalty among potential consumers at an early age. This has not been done for the benefit of the kids. In fact, there's a growing movement to push the tech pendulum back a bit to some reasonable balance between the teaching techniques that have helped children learn for generations and the reliance on mobile screens to teach our children. Because research has shown that while machines may help kids practice the skills they've been taught, they don't actually do so well at the teaching. The TechSafe Schools program is based on emerging science that links exposure to RF radiation with serious biological impacts. This is not junk science, as the industry would have you believe. This is science from the National Institutes of Health, from Yale University, and from other universities and independent research organizations around the world. The science is beginning to help us understand how exposure can cause acute symptoms like headaches, nausea, dizziness, brain fog, and insomnia, and how it can cause chronic illness, including cancer. There are strong studies linking exposure to neurological and reproductive problems. There are thousands of studies going back to studies conducted by the military in the 1950s, and hundreds of these studies are available on the TechSafe Schools website. The current FCC Communications Commission Human Exposure Guidelines for RF radiation were adopted in 1996, based on science from the 1980s. Back then, engineers measured how much radiation it took to raise the body temperature of a lab animal by 1 degree. Then they backed off from that amount and decided that anything below that level would be pretty safe for humans. That is the guideline that currently governs all cell phones, all routers, all laptops, tablets, Chromebooks, smartboards, and every other wireless device. The FCC was recently sued by two nonprofits over its refusal to update its guidelines, and the court reprimanded the FCC, calling its decision not to update arbitrary and capricious. That was in 2021. But so far, the FCC has refused to change its old guidelines, which were never designed to protect children and only consider thermal effects, not the biological effects that most recent studies show. It's also important to remember that the wireless devices used in schools are only tested individually for their compliance with the outdated standard. But that's not the way our kids experience the radiation. To state what should be pretty obvious to everyone, a school is no place for a cell tower. Cell towers put out significant amounts of RF radiation as they handle phone calls, texts, and web traffic. The affected radiated power pattern of a typical cell tower may not be strong at its base, but the signal becomes stronger as you move away from the antenna, for instance, onto a nearby playground or sports field. For the same reason, placing a cell tower on a sports field away from the school just means more radiation coming into the school from the tower. We understand that some school systems rely on the income from the tower to help cover the cost of education. But school officials should be aware that the rental income needs to be balanced against the potential hazard to children in the school over their lifetimes. If we want to reduce the radiation levels in school classrooms, we need to address the elephants in the room. And the elephants in this case are personal cell phones used by students. Research shows that cell phones are a major distraction for kids in school, and many schools have looked at student behavior and mental health conditions and decided to ban or severely restrict the use of cell phones in classrooms. Today, 76% of all schools have some sort of policy on cell phones in class, and we recommend that cell phones be turned off and stored during school hours. There's a sample policy on the TechSafe Schools website. So once we get rid of the cell towers and the cell phones, we still have work for the IT director to do in the school itself. I want to emphasize here that any step in the direction of lowering childhood exposures to a known and proven hazard like RF radiation is a good thing. Even small steps can have a big impact on the amount of radiation to which kids are exposed. None of these recommendations will have any impact on tech-based learning or system performance. And so the question is, why not do it? If it helps one kid feel better in class, if it prevents headaches or brain fog in some kids, or even avoids a diagnosis of some life-threatening illness later in life, why not do it? There's no downside. The first thing we want to do is establish a baseline level in the school. On the TechSafe Schools website, there are detailed instructions on how to use an RF meter to measure the radiation in classrooms. It's important to have a baseline measurement with everything off and then again with everything on so you can see the hot spots. One thing we recommend, especially for grade schools, is to limit the time when wireless systems are operating. Teachers can develop their lesson plans around the wireless schedule, and there can always be hardwired computers that are available, but there are timers that can automatically shut off the wireless after a specific time has elapsed, or they can be programmed by your IT person to go on and off on a schedule. We also recommend placing access points in an area where neither children or teachers spend a lot of time, usually in a far corner of the classroom or over the classroom door. Distance is your friend, and we certainly don't want any student or teacher sitting directly underneath a router or access point all day, every day. By default, most routers and access points are set at the factory for full power to ensure maximum performance and coverage. This is a lot more than is needed for a typical classroom. Fortunately, adjusting the power for most systems is a simple software adjustment. We recommend that you begin to reduce the power by 25% and then test for connectivity. If everything is working fine, reduce by another 25%. Most systems will deliver excellent performance at a fraction of the factory set power. Your IT director can also increase the time interval of the beacon frequency, which also helps reduce the radiation exposure. These are simple software adjustments that take just a few minutes. Here's a report from a school in Canada that wanted to reduce student exposures. You can see over on the right side of the slide the columns showing the percentage of reduction in exposure they were able to achieve, with all of the equipment continuing to work just fine. We're looking at reductions in many classrooms of over 90%. Again, these are reductions from factory settings, which are set for maximum power. Of course, the gold standard for tech-safe schools is to have everything hardwired. Now, we understand that a lot of districts have spent a lot of money on wireless equipment, and kids have gotten used to wandering around the classroom with their iPads or Chromebooks. But as we learn more about the potential harm of constant exposure to radiation, especially for developing brains, we can begin to formulate the cost-benefit analysis that weighs heavily in favor of precaution. One easy and immediate fix is to hardwire all smart boards, projectors, speakers, printers, and other fixed devices that don't move around. Those can all be connected with Ethernet cables in local networks. Here on this slide, you can see some of the options that are available to help hardwire portable devices. These include a simple Ethernet switch that multiplies the number of available ports, the red spider that's essentially an Ethernet switch in a cool package, fed from a cable that drops from the ceiling, and a simple adapter for tablets and laptops that don't have Ethernet connections. Working with IT people and medical professionals, Grassroots has put together a best practices for schools. This includes a lot of the information in this presentation today, and you can download this document and lots of other information from the resources page of the TechSafe Schools website. You'll also find there a new advisory sticker that we recommend for all schools to use to remind teachers and students that these devices are not harmless and that reasonable precautions need to be taken when using them. Thank you very much for your attention.